Welcome. Thanks so much for
Hello.
this. How are you doing?
Doing all right, as well as I can.
Yeah, I know, right? With all the crazy stuff going on. So, for those of our listeners who don't know you, can you give us a little bit of background about you and
Sure.
these days?
I am a clarinetist and bass clarinetist from Houston, Texas. Grew up there, did my undergrad at the University of Houston, and I'm currently finishing up my master's degree at the Boston Conservatory.
Awesome. And what is your degree exactly? Performance or?
My undergrad, I did both performance and music ed, and then my current master's is in clarinet performance.
Awesome. And what do you want to do when you finish your degree?
A very good question. I mean, basically some combination of playing and teaching, like a lot of other people. I definitely love to do like large ensemble playing, so I'm toying with taking auditions and stuff, but I also love doing my own projects and
Mm.
like that. So some combination of all of that, whatever I can get to work.
Sure. And you're planning to come perform for us whenever coronavirus lets up, right?
Yes.
And what will you be
Absolutely.
playing?
Um, uh, we talked about doing one of the Brahms sonatas, I believe the second one, which is obviously one of the greatest pieces in the clarinet repertoire. I'm working on unaccompanied piece by a composer faculty at Berklee College of Music, who I met at a summer festival. It's like 5 miniatures in the spirit of like Robert Schumann. They're all like little character pieces, like a minute or two each. This guy by the name of Andrew List. And then I might be doing one of the opera variations. I'm not sure, depending on what I end up doing for recital this semester with moving to online. I don't know if I'm going to continue with the same rep that I was planning on working on, or I might do something new. Who knows? But those are three of the pieces I'm kind of looking at. Maybe more. There's plenty of wonderful repertoire out there to choose from.
Definitely. So this list piece, you said it's unaccompanied, right?
Yeah.
Do you prefer playing unaccompanied pieces or do you prefer playing accompanied pieces?
Oh, I definitely prefer to play with collaborators of any kind, whether it's with piano or large chamber ensemble, whatever. I'm trying to get more into solo playing for like my own musicianship, because I know I'm very strong at collaborating and I feed off of the energy of other players on stage. It's one of my favorite things about playing. But I'm also trying to push myself in that just how much can I get just from me, you know? So
The difficulties of playing by yourself versus playing with someone else.
sure. One of them is just purely like logistical. It's just you on the stage and then the audience. So there's no one to like, okay, I'm gonna look at, nod, all right, we're ready to go, It's just like, well, it's me, the stand, and so it's just trying to like get in that same zone and like try to collaborate with yourself, play off of your own ideas like you would someone else that's there with you. So I find that a little difficult. Also, I'm just a very social person and I feed off of that energy very well. So when that's not there, I have to take a step back and really think about it.
So as a social person, do you have a hard time like sitting down and focusing and making yourself practice?
Yes, I do. I've been trying to work on ways to get around that, especially in these times when I have all this downtime and I'm still struggling to make myself practice, which I'm sure a bunch of people are dealing with that right now. So I've worked on trying to like schedule out my practicing even by like 10, 15 minutes at a time. So it's like, okay, I'm going to do this piece for 10 minutes and at least I've got that done. And then trying to just pick it up, putting it down throughout the day, but really be intentional about what I'm doing so that when I do sit down, it's effective.
Is there anything you always do every time you practice?
Yes, I always start with at least 10 to 15 minutes of just like core fundamentals, a couple long tones, some scales, and some articulation stuff, because I know that stuff, I mean, we all know it's important, but I'm trying to really make myself stick to that because it'll make everything else easier, and also just stay in shape in times like this. So
Yeah, it's definitely difficult, I think.
yeah,
Not having that external, like, okay, I have to play a recital in a few weeks. It's
exactly.
weird, like, will we ever play recitals again? You and I might end up having to do some sort of online collaboration.
Who knows, you know?
Who knows, yeah. So you told me earlier, I think you're really into contemporary music as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What kind of things do you do with that?
Sure. I've really gotten into particularly contemporary chamber music here at Boston Conservatory. That's one of the big focuses of the school. It's not like a new music school, quote unquote, but like we do a lot more of it than a traditional conservatory. And I've gotten very into it. I love working with composers. There's something about that collaborative process that I think lines up with everything else that I just talked about, where it's like, somebody writes a piece, I work on it, we talk about it, we workshop it. Does this work? Does it not? What are you trying to say here versus what is coming across? And then just playing something new. As much as I love the Brahms sonatas and the Mozart concertos and all that stuff, it's like that has all been done so much. And it's still worth doing, obviously, but there's something nice about putting something new out there that I really, really like.
Yeah.
I think there's a place for both. I know a lot of people that are very into new music are like, new music is the way, period. And then there's people that are like, no, only the classical canon. And I'm just like, why not both? They're both wonderful and you don't go to an art museum and they've torn down all of the Renaissance paintings to put up only contemporary art, and vice versa. They don't not show new art. So why don't we do the same?
Love that analogy. It's so great. Wait, okay, back up. How did you get into playing the clarinet in the first place?
So that's back in 6th grade, beginner band, choosing an instrument, and my neighbor had one in the attic. So we didn't have to rent or pay for anything. So my dad's like, that sounds like a great idea. And it turned out pretty okay. I originally was going to sign up for like low brass, like tuba, trombone. Right. Very different life. So I'm happy with it. That clarinet worked for a little while before I got a new one, but yeah.
Why have you stuck with it? I love clarinet, not trombone. It's my favorite instrument.
Why did I stick with music? For a while I wasn't going to. I almost quit band in like 8th grade. I wasn't having that good of a time, and I didn't want to commit to all the time that comes with high school marching band and all that. But my older brother convinced me to do it for 1 year. He was like, "You'll be fine, trust me," and I did that, and I loved it. And then I want to say around my like junior or senior year of high school is when I was like really thinking about what to do with my life. And I was like going through things like, okay, if I like stopped doing this thing, would I be okay? Would I be happy? And when I got to clarinet, I was like, no, I don't want to stop doing that. And then I was like, well, if I don't want to stop, why not like actually do it, And now here I am.
Oh, that's sweet. You love it that much. Okay, so what do you think are some of the key aspects of becoming a really good clarinet player? Key aspects, that's not a good, the key elements that you need as habits. Wow, this question is struck.
Are you talking
what are the key elements to you as a person that are necessary to become a good clarinet player?
Oh, sure. One of them is just obviously like the core like drive and discipline that it takes to exceed at any instrument or skill of any kind. You have to want to do it and then commit that wanting to do it to actual work. So practicing, obviously, like any other instrument. But also I think maintaining the other parts of your life, like I've, especially the last couple of years, been reevaluating, you know, it's one thing to sit in a practice room for 4 hours and get good at the skill, but then you have nothing to say because you've not been living a life, you know? So I'm really trying to balance, you know, finding those collaborators and just people, whether they're musicians or not, to just learn about the world, and then bring that stuff back into what you have to say. And then also the key of figuring out how to get what you want to get across into your music. It's not like we have, you know, lyrics like a song would that translate directly. So that's been one of my big focuses this last year or two, is just like, how do I actually say something with all these skills that I've worked on?
That is the eternal focus.
Yeah.
The eternal journey.
Exactly.
What advice would you give younger clarinetists?
Sure. One would just be stick with it. Clarinet can be very, very frustrating, especially at the beginning stages, compared to something like, you know, like saxophone or something else, because of just like the struggles, especially of a younger kid that just hasn't developed, you know, larger hands. Covering all the tone holes is difficult, so you get squeaks all the time that you're not even trying, and it's just really, really frustrating. And I dealt with that a lot when I was younger. So I just say stick with it. It gets better. Once you get over a certain hump, it just gets so much more enjoyable. It really does.
That's good. I feel like consistency is just important for everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're just consistent with things, you'll end up being successful at some point.
At some point, yes.
At some point.
Keep on trucking.
Okay, so back to the program that you're going to be playing for us. What is your favorite piece on the program and why?
Ooh. Oh, I like it all. It's hard to not choose the Brahms Sonata, just because it is one of the masterworks. It's one of the few pieces, I think, in the repertoire where it's like truly a duet between the clarinet and the piano. It's not, you know, soloist and accompanist. I know all sonatas are like mostly like that, but I think he truly figures that out. We're very lucky that he wrote that piece at the end of his life, after he'd written so much other music. So he not that he didn't know what he was doing before that, but like, you know, he retired and then came back out of retirement to write so much chamber music for clarinet. And I think he just really knew what he wanted to say. And he chose the colors of the different registers very, very specifically, I think. And it's just a really beautiful piece of music. Hard, but beautiful.
Yeah. What do you find so hard about it? Because I feel like technically it's not crazy.
Yeah, it's not like a big showpiece for clarinet, but putting the piece together I find difficult, because the piano part, sorry, is very hard. And I know that. But on both people learning their parts, if you just sit down and play it straight through with the metronome, it doesn't really work. So figuring out where the push and the pull is, and where do the, you know, Brahms is like the king of hemiola, and finding out where my rhythm fits over yours and where it goes together. And oh wait, here I'm actually the accompaniment to the piano solo. So just like really knowing the piece, I think, is so difficult about it.
Do you have any specific suggestions for knowing the piece? Because a lot of times I tell my clarinetists, I'm like, guys, you just have to go study your score. You know the piano part. And they come back and they're like, I know the piano part. And then we play together and they're like, I don't know.
You don't know the piano part.
What does that even know?
Well, I think there's different stages of knowing it. One of my teachers, and I feel terrible, I cannot remember who it was that told me this system, but I'm also just lucky to have worked with so many great teachers that have taught me different things so that I can forget who it was. Basically told me to listen once without a score or a part or anything. Just listen first. And then listen again with your part. So it's just be with the clarinet part and like only pay attention to the clarinet part and then put that away. And when you come back to it again with just the score and ignore the clarinet part, only listen to the piano, and then take some time, you know, if you want to do any analysis, that also couldn't hurt. Not that you have to sit there and like quarterly analyze the entire sonata, but like some basic like figure out where the forms are, where the cadences are, and then come back and listen to it all together. If you do all of that, I think you're in a really good point. And it also just takes rehearsal and trying it, because there's some things that sound like that should be easy, even if you really know it, but are just difficult to do in the moment. So it's not one of those pieces that you could just like throw together in 15 minutes and go play a jury, you know. But yeah, it just takes time and listening and looking at it. Listening, I think, is number one. Like, even if you didn't have time to practice, if you had time to listen to it, that would be almost more effective.
Do you have like specific practice hacks for things like that? Besides that, like while you're practicing, do you hear the piano part in your head? Like, do you ever practice the piano part?
I've tried, you know, putting some headphones on and listening and playing along, but I don't know. I mean, it's better than nothing, I guess, especially now when we don't have, you know, regular rehearsal with pianists because we're all alone. But I think I usually listen separately from my practicing, because I also want it to be more like mine and not, if I play along with the same recording over and over again, I'm going to play like these other people, which, I mean, the people that record it are wonderful musicians, but I think just like really getting it in your head would be more effective in my.
What do you feel like the hardest thing about playing the clarinet is?
That's a good question. I think making it even would be inconsistent, kind of like we just talked about consistency practice, just because of the way the instrument is built. I mean, the thing is built in 12ths instead of octaves. Like, who does that? It doesn't make sense. It does make sense, and that's why it sounds the way that it does. But because of that, you know, every register sounds and feels so different naturally. So you have to work really hard to make it sound like one consistent sound across all the registers, I think, would be the hardest thing. But it's also one of the beauties of the clarinet, is that it has so many different color possibilities because of how hard it is to make it consistent. So once you figure that out, it just opens up so many doors.
That's true.
I would love to one day figure that out.
I wonder if that day has come for anyone, actually.
For real, though.
So when you collaborate with piano, is there anything that you notice that you do that actually helps lead your pianist or maybe control what they do musically?
I mean, I try not to control anybody. I think
Guilty here.
a loaded word. But I mean, a big part of it is
but be like very confident. Like, I don't know.
Sure. Well, I think being clear is number one. Because if you're unsure yourself of what you're trying to do, you're never going to communicate that properly. I think that part of that goes back to knowing the piece, but also knowing what you want to do with the piece, and then figuring out how to communicate that, whether that's, you know, with a very clear cue, or even with some eye contact, or even to just stop and have a conversation. I find talking my way through things can sometimes be more efficient than trying it over and over again. So yeah, just being very clear and communicative in both conversation and in while you're playing, and lots of eye contact, getting out of it.
That's great. All right. Well, thank you so much for hopping on here and answering all my strange questions today.
Of course. Anytime.
giving us, sharing insight and things like that. We're looking forward to having you whenever we can get you here.
Yeah.
It'll be a great time.
I'm very excited.
Thanks. We'll be in touch.